The largest hotel in the world was torn down on purpose. October 1st, 1929. Fifth Avenue at 33rd Street. Wrecking crews climbed the roof of the original Waldorf-Astoria and began pulling it apart with crowbars while the stock market still had 3 weeks left to live. Inside were 1,300 rooms, 18 electric elevators, 6,000 light bulbs, and a 980-foot marble corridor that society writers had nicknamed Peacock Alley. None of it had failed. The hotel was profitable. The hotel was famous. Presidents had slept there, the Senate had opened its Titanic inquiry there, and Oscar Tschirky had invented the Waldorf salad in its kitchens. It came down anyway, because the land underneath it was worth more than any building made of rooms could ever earn back. This is the obituary of the hotel they killed for the Empire State Building. It started as a family fight. In the early 1890s, William Waldorf-Astor lived in a brownstone at the corner of Fifth Avenue and 33rd Street, directly next door to his aunt, Caroline Schermerhorn Astor, the woman who decided who counted in New York society and who didn't. William believed he should have inherited her social title. She disagreed. So in 1890, he tore his own family mansion to the ground and announced he would replace it with a 13-story hotel, the kind of looming commercial structure no respectable Astor would ever live next to. The Waldorf opened on March 13, 1893. It was designed by Henry Janeway Hardenberg in elaborate German Renaissance style. It cost roughly $4.5 million to build, and it cast its shadow directly across his aunt's garden. Caroline Astor moved uptown. Her son, John Jacob Astor IV, did not move on. 4 years later, he tore down his mother's house and built his own hotel directly against his cousin's, 16 stories, taller than William's, designed by the same architect in the same German Renaissance style, opened on November 1, 1897. He called it the Astoria. The two cousins now owned twin hotels on adjacent lots, and rather than wage two-front war, they did something stranger. They merged. The combined Waldorf-Astoria sprawled across nearly 2 square blocks with about 1,300 guest rooms, the largest hotel anywhere in the world. But the merger came with a clause. Either Astor's side could brick up the connecting corridors at any time, severing the two buildings instantly. The truce was real. So was the door each cousin kept armed. The corridor between the two hotels was 980 feet long, paved in marble, lined in mirrors, and almost immediately renamed Peacock Alley by the press. It was the first lobby in America designed to be looked at. Before the Waldorf-Astoria, hotel lobbies were waiting rooms. After the Waldorf-Astoria, they were stages. Anyone in evening dress could walk in off the street, pay nothing, and parade. That single design choice, the lobby a social space, not just transit, is the foundation of every luxury hotel built since. The hotel piled on more firsts. Private bathrooms in every guest room, telephones in every guest room, 18 electric elevators, restaurants that served non-guests when respectable hotels did not, a multilingual staff when other hotels had one language, and, by most accounts, the first 24-hour room service in the world. On March 13, 1896, the maître d'hôtel, a Swiss-born man named Oscar Tschirky, known forever after as Oscar of the Waldorf, invented a salad of apples, celery, and mayonnaise for a charity ball. He called it the Waldorf salad, and a hotel kitchen accidentally produced one of the most stubbornly recognizable American dishes of the next century. The hotel's other inventions were less wholesome. In February 1897, in the middle of a national depression, the Bradley Martin Ball gathered roughly 800 costumed millionaires at the Waldorf for a single night of pageantry that the press estimated had cost more than most American families would earn in a lifetime. The public reaction was fury. The hotel had become by then the most visible address in the country, the place where the Gilded Age congratulated itself in marble and gold leaf. It also became the room where the country's panic was held. During the financial crisis of 1907, J.P. Morgan ran his rescue of the American banking system out of his private library on Madison Avenue. but the bankers, the trust company presidents, and the treasury officials he summoned all gathered at the Waldorf-Astoria between meetings, eating, waiting, bracing themselves to walk back to Morgan's library and learn whether they would be saved or sacrificed. The hotel did not negotiate the rescue. It absorbed the men who did. By 1912, when the U.S. Senate opened its inquiry into the sinking of the Titanic on April 19, the Waldorf-Astoria had become the country's unofficial Senate chamber for catastrophes. Long-term residents that decade included Diamond Jim Brady, Buffalo Bill Cody, and a fading inventor on the upper floors named Nikola Tesla. By the late 1920s, the math had turned against it. Manhattan had marched north. The fashionable hotels were now along Park Avenue, and the block at 5th and 33rd had become commercial real estate too valuable to leave under a hotel. In 1928, the Astor heirs sold the site for roughly $20 million to a syndicate that quickly evolved into the Empire State Building project, fronted by former New York Governor Alfred E. Smith and bankrolled by Pierre Dupont and John Jacob Raskop. The old hotel served its final dinner on May 3, 1929. On the rooftop, before the wreckers arrived, Al Smith presided over a closing ceremony and offered the official excuse. The building, he said, had to come down, quote, in the northward march of progress. He meant the land was worth more empty. Demolition began on October 1, 1929. 24 days later, on October 24th, the Wall Street market broke. By Black Tuesday, October 29th, the country was inside the worst economic collapse in its history. The wreckers kept working. The Empire State Building's official groundbreaking came on March 17, 1930, on a cleared lot in a country that could no longer afford skyscrapers. The Astoria's marble was sold off. Pieces of Peacock Alley were dumped into the Atlantic Ocean as fill. Workers carried away the chandeliers, the mantelpieces, the great clock from the lobby. There is a particular cruelty in the timeline. The most lavish symbol of the Gilded Age came down precisely as the country discovered the bill was due, and the construction site that replaced it became, for the next 2 years, one of the only things in New York still being built. The Empire State Building opened on May 1, 1931. President Hoover threw a switch in Washington and the lights came on. It was, and is, one of the most beloved buildings in the world. 5 months later, on October 1, 1931, exactly 2 years to the day from the start of demolition, the new Waldorf-Astoria opened on Park Avenue, deliberately positioned as the successor. It kept the name, it kept the brand, it kept a corridor on the lobby floor labeled Peacock Alley. But the original Peacock Alley, 980 feet of marble between two cousins who could brick each other off at any moment, does not exist anywhere in the world anymore. It exists only in photographs, in the Archives and Manuscripts Division of the New York Public Library, and in a salad recipe that everyone still knows the name of. Here is the part the Mainstreet Obituary will not pretend away. The Empire State Building is beautiful. The Empire State Building is the right answer. If you held a vote tomorrow on which one to keep, the building everyone chooses is the one that stands. That is what makes this obituary the hardest one. The system that demolished the original Waldorf-Astoria did not make a mistake. It did exactly what it was designed to do: convert a famous, profitable, irreplaceable thing into the highest possible price per square foot, and let the next thing be the case for itself. We don't grieve the trade. We grieve that the trade is the only conversation we are ever allowed to have. If a story about a vanished American place is worth 10 minutes of your evening, subscribe to Mainstreet Obituary. The next address has already been sold.